Yo, we bike. We are back. Shout out to y'all in the chat, man. I appreciate y'all being here with me this morning. It is Mint Street Mondays. Back and better than ever. Man, I appreciate y'all joining me this morning. If you're new here, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe button, and bell notification so you never miss a video. If you want to join the channel, you can join us. $1.99 per month to join the OCs, the original cats. I don't have my list up today, but I will be updating that list soon. We appreciate you guys so much for supporting the channel. And I'm so thankful that I have all you guys here with me this morning. So we got a few things we're going to cover. Obviously, it is OTA season. Look, I got a lot of stuff that I'm going to talk about. I'm excited. Like, I don't know if you can tell. You can probably tell by my voice and my giddiness that I'm excited to get back to this because we finally have like real action things that we can look at. Discuss, different ideas that we can kind of come up with as far as like what we believe is going to happen moving forward. But anyway, could not do this without you guys. Shout out to y'all this morning. Dana Lowe in the building. My man Pop, Nicole, Ivory, Rob Blake. What's going on? Earl Locklear. Man, I see so many people in here. Anthony Pick in here. Ben Flipping Facts is in here. Man, tons of people in here. So I got to be honest with you. So I'm streaming off of a different computer than I'm used to because right now my big computer is down, so I'm doing this off of my MacBook. So sometimes the words are very small in the comments. So if I'm getting your name wrong, I definitely apologize. But we'll work on continuing to do that the right way, the way that we do it the best. So, so I wanted to start here. So I heard something. We'll just get right into it. When I like to go around and just look at different theories and things that people are saying in the media. We don't get a ton of regular media coverage when it comes to like the mainstream media. But as I've told you guys before, I'm a big proponent of independent media and getting your news and your information from people like us and even people that cover the team. There's a lot of great reporters that have been 10 toes for a long time. Guys like Julian Council, that have been doing this for quite some time. Mike K, Alex Zetlow, Sheena and Vashti. There's people that have been doing this for a very long time. That we Carolina Huddle, or I think is the name. I think it's Chris. I could be wrong, but people that have been doing this for quite some time that give you like good information, right? But every now and again, our stories will leak through to the big dogs, right? And primarily, Pat is one of those people that covers us, more than anybody else. Well, there was a really interesting point that was raised, and this came from Dan Orlovsky, and it was that he felt like that Dave Canales made a mistake giving up play calling, and it was for two reasons, right? One was because, typically play callers, and look, Brad, our co-host, he'll be here soon. He was someone who also, kind of pushed back on this because I personally was a proponent of giving up play calling, right? Only because it just felt like sometimes there was a little bit of being overwhelmed with all the things that entail being a head coach, and not everybody's cut out. Even when guys that do call plays, whether that's Andy Reid, Ben Johnson, you name Mike McCarthy, these coaches that are play callers, sometimes even when they call plays and they're doing like the basics of, coaching or whatever like that, they do a really good sales job of letting you know that things aren't falling apart, right? Or either they delegate tasks very, very, very well. I think Dave, and one of the things that I think was maybe a problem for him was Dave's a very transparent person, right? So like sometimes he would come into the media, and one of my biggest frustrations was during the whole Rico and Chuba Hubbard, back and forth, like during the mid part of the season. You got Rico in Chuba's absence. I mean, he just tearing it up, 180-yard game, 150-yard game, and it's just, you're seeing this consistency from him, but then you go to that Buffalo game and you see more Chuba, and it's just like, all right, man, what are we doing, right? And it's like anytime the media would say something, like he would be very candid about it, but it also looked like he would make changes based on the pressure that was coming from the questions being asked and people like us, talking about this stuff in the ethos of the internet and stuff like that. And so some guys just don't do a great enough job of being able to handle both at the same time, at least internalizing a lot of this stuff, right? As opposed to just saying, whatever they want to say publicly. And I think that kind of posed a little bit of an issue. But Dan Orlovsky did pose a point, and look, some of this point, I'm going to be honest with you, probably a lot of people are going to be like, man, we don't really care about that. Like, there's no more excuses for Bryce Young. And I get that. I get it 100%. And I'm not here to cape. I'm telling you right now, I'm not here to cape. I'm only here to hear him out to see what exactly he said and if it's agreeable in any specific way, right? So I want to listen to what Dave Canales had, what Dan Orlovsky had to say on Pat McAfee's show just a couple of days ago. Let me know if y'all can hear this. If you type a 1 in the chat if you hear it. If you don't, then I'll go over it.
Go ahead, Tone.
Yeah, Dan, I wanted to talk about a couple playoff teams last year who have new play callers. Different situations, obviously. Start with the Panthers. Dave Canales, the head coach, has been the play caller. He got that job because of being a play caller, and he is going to relinquish those duties. And then up in Seattle, obviously, Clint Kubiak goes to the Raiders. So Seattle no longer has him as the OC. They have a first-time OC play caller as well. What are your thoughts on those situations?
Don't like either of them. I would start with Carolina. I think if you're hired because of your play calling, you should not give up play calling.
Agreed.
I think Canales is good as a play caller. It's, this game, it's probably, if we're being honest, that's probably a $150 million loss. I think if Bryce Young and them beat the Rams, he would have gotten an extension this offseason. I'm not saying they didn't because of him. He played great in that game, but I just believe the optics of that upset. He's probably under top 5 pressure quarterback-wise in the NFL, and so going into this season. And so I don't like the fact that Coach Canales has given up the play calling. I believe their new offensive coordinator, Brad Idzik, as to my knowledge, has never called plays. I don't understand how that happens. I know at some point everyone has to call their plays for the first time. I don't know if it should be with a quarterback that's having, an enormous year on top of his shoulders. I think Carolina is going to be good up front offensively. It'll really be about their really secondary and third option pass catchers. Tet was obviously very good. Does Coker take a step forward? Xavier Legette, they draft Brazel out of Tennessee. Sanders is a good tight end. So, but it's. I don't like the fact that the head coach and the play caller has given up the play calling duties with such a big year on tap.
So this was my thoughts on that. I'm sorry if it's chopping a little bit, y'all. My apologies. It should stop doing that here in a second. I don't necessarily disagree with some of Dan's points there, right? I will say this though. There's going to be a lot of people, myself included, in some respects, from the Bryce point. Because the giving up play calling point, like we've got, and I'll pull up some examples here in just a second so we can kind of see what this looks like historically. But the Bryce point, I think, is more the important point of all of this, is to change up play calling when you've got such a huge year for your quarterback. Now, the conspiracy tinfoil hat brain guy could be like, well, this could be the catalyst that, hey, if it don't work, then you get to move on to the quarterback that you want to move on to, right? And get somebody that you really want in here. That's not what I think about this. Like, I don't think it from that perspective at all. As a matter of fact, mine is I really believe that Dave wants to have a hands-on approach, because I think sometimes you can proxy yourself into a circumstance to look at something else by what seems like, okay, let me give you an example, right? We talked about how historically Ejiro Evero does not like to play rookies, right? We know that from his time in Denver, right? With Nick Bonito kind of getting shelved his first year. There's a chance that Nick Scorton doesn't get an opportunity, and we don't see a lot of him if the situation with Pat Jones doesn't happen, right? So maybe it's possible that, yes, from an offensive perspective, cool, I'm going to be stepping away, but I'm still going to sort of be like involved. And I brought in Darrell Bevel to kind of help out and, all that kind of stuff. But I'm also going to get a chance to look elsewhere, to see what else is going on, to have my hand in other places, to make sure that things are operating, well in other places. He said as much. Vashti asked him this question in a press conference last week, and he pretty much said as much.
we'll expect them to be able to contribute in some way or shape or form.
Without the coordinator duties, how have things changed for you at this first OTA practice?
It just frees me up to bounce around and just see what's happening at different positions and go and hear what Pat McPherson is doing down with the tight ends for a second and, get with Todd Wash with the defensive line and watch those guys work and just to really get an appreciation for the staff that we have that pushes our groups. I was really looking forward to that. Also, just being able to be available to Tracy during special teams and hopping into drills kind of over the last couple of weeks, grabbing a bag, being a part of what they're doing, and really just to so that every area of our team knows I care about them. I care that we have a high standard for how we're working. It matters to me so that no group really feels like they're not getting that attention. And I'll be honest, whichever group I go around, there's a little bit of an uptick in terms of the effort and what they're doing. The guys are always competing, and I love that. So I love just kind of being that presence and supporting the coaches as they.
I'm going to tell you why I love that answer, because it proves the theory that we talked about before. No longer am I going to be an absentee father when it comes to other positions that are extremely important. Positions that I need to be able to hear exactly. Hold on. Give me 1 second. So I had to see the southern play. All right, I want to make sure. What just happened? I don't trust anything. People say things just to say it. Okay, my bad. All right. I wanted to make sure that sound and everything else was working well. I just kind of saw the chat kind of moving around weird. But anyway, as I was saying, I like the answer. It provides you with an opportunity for you to see, look, I'm not being an absentee father when it comes to things that are very important elsewhere on this team. It gives me face of the organization kind of, carte blanche, if you will, right? So now we can have some real serious conversations if I see things that are going a little bit awry on this defense, because now I'm able to kind of move around a bit because I've got somebody that I entrust handling what used to be my position, when in reality, my position was not only that, but just equally as important, my coaching duties, right? As you build trust and you go along, you can, and look, we've got historical examples of people who have done this and then snatched the play calling back. Mike McCarthy in 2015, oddly enough, our unicorn year, right? Mike McCarthy gave up play calling at the beginning of the season, snatched it back somewhere around the time that we beat him, right? Why? It's not going well. So you totally understand, right? So we have historical examples of this. But I think it's so important to be face of the organization. I was screaming that from the top of my lungs last year when you saw things like clock management issues, personnel issues, all these different things going on. You've got to be able to delegate those tasks to people, and you be able to kind of oversee everything. And I'll say this, because sometimes this doesn't always happen, and it's not always successful with every coach that's ever done this, right? So I know this will be a little hard to read in some respects, but I'm going to help you out. I'm going to read it for you. So I put together a chart of NFL coaches who have given up play calling and how often it works versus when it doesn't, right? Now, I'll say that we've got a couple of instances recently where it's worked, but it hasn't necessarily been sustained, right? For example, Brian Daboll gave up coaching in 2022. He let Mike Kafka take over, right? Before the change, they were 5-12. They got to the playoffs at 9-7. Well, the 9-7-1, if you will, right? Now, granted, it didn't work long-term because obviously we see where we are. Daniel Jones was their quarterback. Now, if you want to argue, well, it was more the play calling, it was more the coaching, it was more the personnel, it was more the egos, whatever you want to say, it did work for a short period of time, right? We have another example. Matt Nagy with the Bears in 2023 gave up play calling, 19.9 points per game before the first 9 games, 27.3 points per game the next 4, right? But the most notable person that's done it as of recent, and I do think that there's a correlation here, right? And the reason why I'm okay with Dave doing this, because I understand Dan Orlovsky's point, because when you look at history is not favorable for people who come in as play callers, offensive play callers, and give that up. It is not favorable for those guys, which, look, I totally understand that, right? I get it. Nick Sirianni. And there, like I said, there's a correlation here. So Nick Sirianni started out 2-5 before the change, right? This is when he first started. gave over the play calling to Shane Steichen. Not only have they won a Super Bowl, but they've been kind of the creme de la creme of the NFC ever since, right? And that's cycling through coordinators, whether that was Steichen, Kellen Moore, the guy they had last year, and who they have now, right? But they're still been consistent, above 500 winning seasons. In addition to that, also Super Bowl appearances, right? Not appearances. That is, to me, the bar. I hope that what we're doing here becomes that. And I think the only reason that this will work for Dave Canales of all people is who he is, his personality. He exudes that whole, let me build you up. Let me hear you out. Let me be the Phil Jackson to Dennis Rodman, right? I watch The Last Dance every summer. Before football season, I don't know why it is, man, but I was so inspired by watching The Last Dance that July that it came out that I've started watching it every July from that point forward, right? And I get something new from it every time. And one of the things that I loved about it when I watched it last year that I honed in on a little bit more was watching how Phil Jackson, who, by the way, Phil Jackson, this is the beautiful thing about what Brad Isaac. I seen a Tony the fan in the chat talking about believing in Isaac. I think it's what you said. I told you the chat's really small, so I can't really see that well. But I'm pretty sure that's what you said. Look, Tex Winter was the guy that was the architect of the triangle offense, right? So you had someone there. Like, imagine this. Imagine Phil Jackson takes over, right? And all of a sudden, they're like, hey, Doug Collins got fired. Doug Collins had some success, but it's just not enough, right? So Phil Jackson takes over this guy who is a, good offensive guy. He's an offensive wizard, no doubt, but right? But he's got this guy on his staff that's been with him, his Brad Isaac, if you will, right? And I'm going to elevate him and put him in position. I'm sure people in Chicago would be like, what are we doing? Because that's many people's sentiment. Look, it's not just the media that's saying this. There are other people, like, I'll give you an example. The preseason, which I think personally is crazy. I really think preseason is Jimmy on Joe, hat on a hat. Let's see who's more athletic than who. Everything's vanilla. There's no exotic blitzes. You're not, calling out hot, all this other kind of stuff. Once upon a time in the preseason, I saw Laviska Shenault run a corner route. Tell me the last time you seen him do that in a game. I'll tell you when. He doesn't. Even in his, whatever he's in now, UFL, wherever he's in, that's not his game. Screen pass, bubble screen, drag route, even handoffs out of the backfield. But while you're out there, man, let's see what you can do. Let's just try it. See what happens. And you can imagine what happened. He didn't come out of his break fast enough, ball sails over his head. It's not your game. Cool. Even though it wasn't college, which is a weird thing for the Michigan Chanel. But regardless, it's vanilla. You're not going to know what you see from anybody in the preseason. Like I said, it is literal Jimmy and Joe's. You got all this new stuff going on. T-Mac's a new receiver. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff that you're trying to implement and just see who's who in the zoo, right? To quote JT O'Sullivan. So I didn't take the preseason stuff as any kind of like bearing on what Brad Isaac would be as a play caller, right? But he really could be Tex Winter. He could. He could have he could understand the personnel on a level that even Dave Canales doesn't, right? And I do think that there is a world that exists where Dave Canales believes in this kid so much that, yes, Darrell Bevel is there because he even admitted it. He said in the press conference that Darrell, is there kind of like administratively just kind of overlooking things and, maybe not, let's not try this here. You know what I'm saying? Or, no, you can't do that. That might cause more penalties than you like. You know what I'm saying? These are things that you have to have in place just for a safety blanket. Because my biggest question, here's the other thing, the other element of this. Whose idea was this? That's the other portion of this that maybe I hadn't seen this yet. Maybe this was something that kind of slipped through the cracks that I didn't see on a blueprint in the offseason before we got to the draft and all that kind of stuff when this whole, situation was rolled out. But I had posed this to Brad, right? And I'll say this now, and then Brad and I will kind of pick up on this when he comes in. I want to know whose idea this was. I don't know that we'll ever truly know, right? But beyond the obvious, beyond the slips through the cracks of, things that happen on the field and maybe some personnel decisions and maybe, checks and balances not happening with the defense or, I'm going to tell you that quote that Dave Canales had about, that's a telling quote. There's so much in there that we don't really get to. I'm going to play that part one more time. I want to play what he said again because I thought that was really interesting. I'm going to find this real quick. When he said, it gives me a chance, I see an uptick in other places when I show up. When I go over there and I start, kind of looking around and seeing what's going on, I see an uptick in the play and stuff like that.
And go and hear what Pat McPherson is doing down with the tight ends for a second and, get with Todd Wash with the defensive line and watch those guys work and just to really get an appreciation for the staff that we have that pushes our groups. I was really looking forward to that. Also, just being able to be available to Tracy during special teams and hopping into drills kind of over the last couple of weeks, grabbing a bag, being a part of what they're doing, and really just to so that every area of our team knows I care about them. I care that we have a high standard for how we're working. It matters to me so that no group really feels like they're not getting that attention. And I'll be honest, whichever group I go around, there's a little bit of an uptick in terms of the effort and what they're doing. The guys are always competing, and I love that. So I love just kind of being that presence and supporting the coaches as they do their.
Whatever group I go around. Interesting. Could there be one specific group you're going around that you get an uptick from? Hearing something a little bit different? Maybe a player coming to you after a 3-year period or 2-year period of being under a specific coach saying like, Coach, I'm going to tell you something. We got way more capability in us than what we're showing, but we just not being used right. All right, well, let me come around and see what's up. Let me come around and see what's going on. I told you. This could be for more than just offense. This could be like, hey, we need you to be an operative. Go around and just see what's real in the field. Go have some conversations. Hey, we got this, and we'll talk about this a little bit later. We got this new kid, Aaron Hall, from Duke. They can't block him. He's twitchy. Even the players are seeing it. Why is he on the bench? See what I'm saying? Like, these are the kind of things, these are the kind of conversations that can come along when you're not focused solely on one position group, right? Face of the organization. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, you said it. Tony said he's shaking honey from the tree. Absolutely. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going around to see what's really good. I told y'all, this ain't going to be, you have drafted way too many impactful rookies. Lee Hunter. I have seen people tweeting that Lee Hunter has sometimes had to tone it down in practice because of how active he is and how he's getting to the backfield, right? Let somebody who will remain nameless try to put him on the bench. When, if in the event that we get somebody come back from injury or whatever, even if it's Bobby, dog. Bobby right now on a little bit of a injured. This is a great opportunity for our young guys, Cam and Lee Hunter. Yeah, we ain't doing that this year. Nope. We putting the best players out there, even on offense. Hey, look, even Dave looking himself in the mirror, right? I almost cried when Xavier Lee had a really good game. Emotion. I get it. You're tied to him. Guess who's not? Probably Brad. More than likely Daryl. I told Brad this. My Brad, the invisible one, right? I told my Brad, hey, look, if Brad hits the ground running and he don't need training wheels, which I'm going to be honest with you personally, if you're going to give me the job, give me the job. I don't mind having a mentor and having somebody over me to kind of, assist me in some of the small things, right? I became a finance manager in the dealership and I had a, mentor over the top of me to kind of show me, hey, this is what you do in CDK or this is what you do in Reynolds and Reynolds or whatever like that. But as far as like the sale, hey, look, y'all wouldn't have put me in this office if you didn't think I could do it, right? So let me do it. It wouldn't surprise me that if Brad is killing it, that Daryl's role becomes personnel driven, kind of helping in that department. Hey, Mr. Canales, I know you like the guy from South Carolina. I know. I get it. We do too. We want to see him successful too. You see what 19 just did out there? How many snaps you going to take away from him for your favorability? Just asking. Not saying that you're going to show favoritism. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is sometimes you do need some people in your life to help you to steer you to make some really hard decisions, some really tough decisions. Right? Just saying. Appreciate y'all joining me this morning. Make sure to smash that like button, subscribe button, and bell notification so you don't miss a video. I appreciate you guys' participation in the chat. We'll go back through and read some of these chat messages. You'll see me lean a little bit closer because I can't really see them that well, but I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. So now, oh, yeah, there we go. Now I can see them perfect. Let me see. Black94 says, swear I had to pull Evero teeth to let Nick Scorton play. Hey, man, I'm trying to tell you. Tony the Fan said, when I said people act like this was a negative. Yeah, I mean, it's, it's crazy. It's insane. I'm going to go back up to the top, towards the top of the chat. Let's see. Plays will get in the huddle quicker. Absolutely, Rob. What's up, Panther Boy 0803? Panthers for life. Even Sean Payton gave play calling up this. Sean Payton, and that's not the first time he's done it. Like, Sean Payton gave up play calling for a very brief time during his time in New Orleans. Yeah. So, what's up, Elaine Foster? Appreciate you, man. My man Pop in the building. Dana Lowe says, I don't trust anything ex-quarterback that runs out of bounds has to say. I don't know about that, man. Come on, stall Dan out, man. Dan has some good takes sometimes. I like Dan. I enjoy his commentary. And the reason is because just because you may have failed at a certain, like for me, for instance, right? I just talk narratives. I'm no different than anybody else out here that, like you guys, just if we was sitting down in front of each other having a conversation, I just like to talk narratives because there's a perspective that Dan has that I will never be able to have because he was there. He's seen it. He's lived it, right? And look, not for nothing, the average NFL career is 3 to 5 years, tops, right? Dan Orlovsky was a 12-year guy, 12-year veteran that started. Now, it might not have always been great, but he did start. And sometimes, look, situations, man, look, he knows this. One thing I can say about Dan is that, Dan has been very, what's the word I could say? Diplomatic in his conversation about Bryce, and even sometimes when people would kind of shoot at him, people even in our own communities would shoot at him about it because we want this, immediate microwave, situation, considering that everything was bad for so long prior and then things were still bad and starting to get better even now. Like, he was very diplomatic in his approach and honestly shocked that things kind of went the way that they went. But you could argue that maybe his perspective on this is kind of, built on that a little bit. It's like, man, you finally get things turned around. You finally see some success. And when he was talking about the, $150 million swing, he was mainly talking about how that if they would have pulled off that game, Bryce, throws that pass to Jalen Coker. And here's the reality, man. When you beat a team like that, and really, I'm not saying that Carolina goes on the road and beats Chicago because I think that's who we would end up playing next. I don't know that would have happened. But here's what I do know. You don't know what could have happened. That's what I do know. I do know that anything was possible if you pull off that game. And yes, I do believe, you think about this, that would have been the first playoff win for Carolina since we went to the Super Bowl, the year we went to the Super Bowl, right? Because we went to the playoffs in 2017, but we did not beat the New Orleans Saints, and we have not been back since. And you would have been the quarterback that orchestrated the first playoff win since 2015. That's huge. That's huge. And the reason why I think that he's right in the fact that that might have pushed the whole contract narrative over the top is because, hey, your representatives, when they go to the table, they bringing that up. You know what I'm saying? Like, look, hey, dog, when the last time y'all did this? Look what he did. Look at the adversity he faced, and he still was able to do it. Go ahead and take care of my man. He's your guy, right? So I'm not saying that they would have acquiesced to it. They probably still would have wanted to do fifth-year option, see a little bit more, all that kind of stuff. But you damn well better believe that those conversations would have been on the table. So that's all. So shout out to y'all, man. I appreciate the chat. My man, the Invisible One, is in the building. The Invisible One is here. And we welcome him, as we always do, on Mint Street Monday. We appreciate him. He is always so thoughtful in his commentary, and we got some questions today. Shout out to my man, Brad, the Invisible One. What's good, brother?
What's going on, my brother? I'm going to talk a little Panthers football.
Indeed.
Out here taking advantage. I rode by a place, and the gas was like $3.59, so I had to stop in and get that last, 75% of my tank at 359.
I understand that.
That's what it is now.
That's what's up, man. So you coming in on a great conversation. We were talking about this. I kind of, told you a little bit of this before, but all of this stuff is kind of fresh, that you're going to be hearing. Dan Orlovsky posed a question, not a question necessarily. He, had a statement about Dave Canales giving up the play calling. We've had a little bit of dialogue about that this morning. Some pretty good feedback in the chat, but we want to get your feedback on this as well. I'm going to play this clip. It might, clip a little bit as I'm playing it, so just, bear with it. But as soon as the clip is over, everything will go back to the same. But I want you to hear this clip and then give me your thoughts on what he has to say here about the play calling being given up by Dave.
The head coach has been the play caller. He got that job because of being a play caller and to the Raiders. So Seattle no longer has him as the OC. They have a first-time OC play caller as well. What are your thoughts on those situations?
And then beat the Rams, he would have gotten an extension. Don't understand.
All right, let's see. I think we should be back. All right, so I'm not going to play that clip again because, I don't want the technical difficulty to commence. But it looks like we are back. Type a 1 in the chat if you are here with us, if everything's good. I know it probably stopped there for a second, but just hit a 1 in the chat if you can still see us on right now. But he's saying volume. They're saying volume. Brad, you still there?
Yep.
All right. Okay, cool. Perfect. Rob Blake is saying volume. They're saying that Rob is saying that your volume, Brad, is a little bit on the low side, but I know Rob been having some trouble with his volume. Hey, yo, if y'all can hear Brad, type a 1 in the chat. Brad, talk to me real quick.
Talk to me right quick.
Word. All right, we'll keep it going. Anyway, all right. So Dan Orlovsky had his content about that, Brad. I'm sure you were able to see it. They're typing 1s in the chat. They can hear you. Let's keep it rolling. What are your thoughts on what Dan Orlovsky had to say in regards to Dave Canales giving up play calling?
Well, first of all, you like Dan Orlovsky. Maybe he's one of those guys that knows what he's talking about more so than he actually showed on the field. Sometimes when they say people who can't play coach or commentate, I just have that video in my head, that film of him just running out of the back of the end zone, everything being too much for him on the NFL field. And then it's like, all right, let's analyze, let's talk about what teams are doing. He does make some good points. It is a contract year for Bryce. It's a big year for Bryce. And so there's a lot of pressure that's already on him. And then, you say that you're going to change up some of the play calling, things are going to be different. I do believe that, they're different people, they're individuals. So the rhythm will be different of what Isaac's going to do. But I mean, he's a Canales clone, He's an understudy. He's going to do a lot of what Canales does or did. And he's also going to be in, meetings, passing coordination, all that different stuff that they do before every game to prepare. And Canales is going to have his, blueprint all over what he's going to be doing. Also, they brought in Darrell Bevell. I don't think this decision was taken lightly. And I think it's a decision that was made because they were able to get Bevell on the staff. Mm-hmm. I always go back to 2018 when, they bring in Norv Turner, and Ron Rivera said, he was like, if I could have had Norv Turner day one, even over Rob Chudzinski, that's what I would have done. I wanted Norv day one, but, he was involved in Minnesota. So we had to wait for him basically to go through another 6-7 years on another staff, or options of being his own head coach, before he was able to come and be the coordinator for Cam in 2018. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times guys can't get who they want. That's one aspect of it. And another aspect of it is, Canales, he's always beating the drum for coach development. And he's always talking about how he wants his coaches to be guys that eventually, tier up and become guys that, get to the level where they can be their own coaches. And, that always starts with giving them a little bit more responsibility. And I mean, we've seen, snippets of what Isaacs can do in preseason, and that's looked decent, and then that's looked terrible at times. But also, I mean, you talked about yesterday, in the preseason, I mean, you're giving them Tom Jones, you know what I mean? You're not giving them Raphael Sadiq, we're not giving them Timberland. Like, we're giving them,
Why you shooting with Tom Jones, man?
the most vanilla. Cause you know why I'm shooting at Tom Jones. We all remember Carlton. How when Carlton got hyped and he turned that Tom Jones on and get the snapping and swaying, and we'd be like, man,
For sure.
this kid's a real square.
Actually, Carlton was the realest one, man. You remember what happened at the sorority? I mean, the fraternity situation. He said, "Brother, I'm running the same hurdles as you. Why are you trying to trip me up?" But go ahead.
He did say that.
Yeah.
After saying, or before saying, let's make like a tree and leaf. You know what I mean?
No, that was Will. That was Will that said that.
It was Will that said that. My bad. All right, I digress. So, yeah, he's trying to build these coaches up. I really like what he's doing on the defensive end too. Talked about special teams being able to go and see in the uptick in guys' participation when he shows up and showing everybody that he cares about the individual parts of the team. And to do that, we all know about leadership qualities. To do those things, you've got to delegate responsibilities, but you also have to have a plan. And I don't believe this plan would have came to fruition if it wouldn't have been for Miami moving on and Bevel becoming available.
Yeah. So to me, that's the saving grace in all of this is the fact that Darrell Bevel was available. You know what I'm saying? And that Darrell Bevel came on board. Because I argued with you yesterday about this, and I said this a little bit before you came on. Man, if you're going to give me the job, give me the job, right? I talked about this. I put together this graph, man. And this is a graph of NFL coaches who gave up play calling. I know it's a little bit hard to read, so I'm reading some of it for you guys so you can see it, from my vantage point. Now, I talked about before you got here the people who have succeeded. Now, more often than not, it is about a 25, to 35%, success rate. Only 10 to 15% led to major turnarounds, though, right? And that would be the biggest example of those would be the most recent example would be Nick Sirianni. Brian Daboll's kind of had the same thing with Mike Kafka taking over play calling, but the most notable changeover that happened was with Nick Sirianni, right? And that's what I'm hoping. And like I said, part of the correlation where I believe that Dave Canales can have a lot of success with in the similar way is that one, there's kind of two things happening simultaneously. I think that the Carolina Panthers may have found their version, depending on how this draft goes, right? Because that's important. But depending on how this draft goes, and we're going to need to see this, the one thing that that Dan Morgan hasn't had an opportunity to do yet is to be on the winning side of someone's bad mistake, if that makes sense. We've been able to get some players that have failed. T-Mac, in my opinion, was a mistake by a few teams ahead of us that didn't draft him. We got him Rookie of the Year, right? Offensive Rookie of the Year. But he hasn't had an opportunity to be able to draft a Jalen Carter when we move up and take, Bryce Young, right? And Howie Roseman just starts stacking talent on top of talent on top of talent just by the sheer fact of hey, if Carolina would have been there, he probably would have been their pick, right? And the situation that happened with him in in Georgia that led him to fall. Those decisions will come. That said, though, I do think that Carolina has found their version of Howie Roseman / John Lynch or, whoever, Ozzie with, Baltimore. I think they got their guy at GM, right? So now you get to stack talent on top of that. So that's one advantage that Nick Sirianni had that a couple of these other guys don't, because New York hasn't been the best talent conveyor for a Brian Daboll, right? So that's number one. Number two is I think that they share a similarity in how they just kind of react and act around people. I think Nick Sirianni is a little bit more of a aloof personality where he does some things sometimes that are just all right, come on, man. What are you doing? You're never going to see Dave Canales looking at a camera after you're beating the team like a drum and we're looking at the camera doing this, as the, you're going to commercial or whatever, or seeing your quarterback have to grab the head coach and be like, hey, man, cool off, chill out or whatever like that, which is also why I kind of feel like this AJ thing kind of got out of hand because Nick didn't necessarily step in the way that maybe a Dave Canales would in this situation. So I think that there's a little bit more balance there. So that's another reason I think that this can be successful for Dave Canales. But if we're just looking historically, like I said, there's been a few other people that have done this and it's absolutely bombed because it's not normal. And that is what the perspective. So when we talk about, because I said this as far as the whole Dan Orlovsky running out of the back of the end zone, all that kind of stuff, cool. The one thing that Dan Orlovsky can provide as far as context is concerned is he's been there. Dan Orlovsky has been on the side of having multiple play callers when he was in Detroit. Dan Orlovsky has seen what it looks like to be a backup quarterback and have continuity when he was with Matt Stafford in Detroit when that whole situation changed. He's seen what it looks like to not know who you're going to have calling offensive plays when he played for Houston and they had 2 or 3 offensive coordinators at a time. So he knows that I'm not as talented as a Bryce Young. I don't play as well as him. I don't see the game like he sees it, all that kind of stuff. But here's what I do know. I know that people ahead of me that I've seen struggle like this, right? Matt Stafford or whoever else, I've seen what that looks like. So when you're coming off of an 8-9 season, when you just orchestrated a couple of drives that could have literally changed the entire this man's fortune, is what he's saying. Like I said, I'm not saying that. I still think that Brad Izzik, not Brad Izzik, but Brant Tillis, Dan Morgan, all those guys at the top part of the front office are probably still like, hey, we are not signing him to a long-term extension right now, right? That's not happening at this moment, regardless of what happens. But I guarantee you his representatives are having that conversation. They're having that conversation after he does what nobody's been able to do since 2015, since Cam Newton, and that's when a playoff game in Carolina, right? And he orchestrated a drive that would have done it had the defense, stood tall and finished the job. Or if he would have done it on that other drive that they had at the end of the game. But regardless, like I said, I think it would have been a conversation nonetheless. That said, I'm excited about it. I'm optimistic about it because of the things that you presented. The Darrell Bevel situation. That's a huge one. You know what I'm saying? Having him in. But at the same time, I also think, because this was another note that I had, researched and looked up, and that was this. What history suggests. Most of the time when these coaches have the height of success when it comes to changing over play calling, it's usually when the replacement changes the offensive identity or scheme. So this idea that Brad Izzik sat up under Dave Canales, so it's just going to basically be a carbon copy. I'm just going to do this over here, and you're going to come in and do this. Even if he agreed to that, I guarantee you there's going to come a point in the season when things aren't going the way that maybe he sees that they should go, and I'm going to make a change right here. And there's going to be a conversation of potential conflict that exists with that. Because if that's the case, then here's what I can tell you. As soon as we struggle, and it lasts for more than a couple of games, let's say before the bye week, we end up going, 1-3, right? Mark my word. Remember I said this. Dave Canales will be calling plays again. Not Darrell Bevel, not Brad Izzik. Dave Canales will be calling plays. Carry on.
Well, I mean, it's going to look a little bit different just for the fact that Bevel's kind of putting his stamp on it. And we all know Bevel will open it up. He'll go 4 wide. You know what I'm saying? He'll go 5 wide. He'll run out of the shotgun. Like, there's a lot of different things that Bevel will institute with his, opportunities to put his stamp on the offense. And so there will be small differences. I do feel like it's going to open up more. I mean, if you listen to Izzik talk, and he's talking about Chris Brazzell, in particular, he's just like, man, he's going to run the coverage off. Teams are going to have to run shell coverage. They're going to have to commit, secondary players to this kid. And when you do that, and you run effective play action, you can get a lot of stuff done in between. That's why, we had a long talk yesterday about the tight ends. You can really get things done in that intermediate space when you're running the top of that coverage off. And then if they decide to pass it on, you can go over the top. So I hope it'll be a lot more wide open because, one, Bryce being in year 4, you got more confidence in Bryce. 2, you've got more confidence in a second-year T-Mac. You've got more confidence in a third-year Coker. I don't know if people have been paying attention, but Xavier Leggette's come in. He's lost weight. He looks quicker.
No, please.
He's fully healthy.
Oh, please.
There are a lot of people, beating the drum, me being one of them, for Jonathan Brooks. That's why we moved on from Rico. And there's going to be a whole lot of opportunity for these guys to get out there and get wide open. And just from what, we always get fluff pieces, but it's a continual just stream of speed. That's all we see is speed. And in a division where defenses have changed, New Orleans has lost, DeMario Davis. They lost Cam Jordan. I mean, we're going to be able to, and also, the Falcons lost James Pierce for the foreseeable future. We're going to be a hard team to deal with in space.
Yeah.
And so I would be remiss and I would be disappointed if Izzy didn't come out there and open it up a little bit more, because you do have a more experienced quarterback. You do have faster players. And you do have a little experience, especially, your rookie of the year who's 6'5".
Yeah.
So I think it's going to look different. But I do feel like Canales is going to give this man a whole lot of rope. Unless we are – think about the switch from Rico and Chuba last year. We talked about this yesterday. Even with Chuba coming back and not being 100%, he gave Chuba an opportunity to keep running the ball and be the number one back.
Yeah.
I feel like he's going to give this dude, unless it's week 8 or week 9, I believe he'll make a change if it's that bad before the season is lost. But otherwise, he's going to allow him to really get out there and get his feet wet.
I think so too. Look, this is my belief. My belief is this is going to be the Shane Steichen taking over in Philly move, right? I don't know why I just have that belief, man, because we'll talk about it a little bit further in a second. I want to get to some of the chat, and specifically the super chat from my man Joe Clarity. Appreciate the super chat, brother. He says, isn't the head coach supposed to be the CEO on the field, delegating responsibilities and not a middle manager, micromanaging various parts of the team? Indeed. Yeah. Now, like I said, some guys do a very good job of hiding if they're struggling with that, right? Because some people are very stoic in their Aurelius style of, leadership, right? In the way that, like I'll give you an example. Ben Johnson's probably like this, right? Andy Reid's probably like this. Mike McCarthy is probably very much like that, right? Where even if he is struggling, my pride and just who I am as a person will not allow you to know that, right? I'm the dad that goes to work. I may have a super hard job. I may come home and not feel appreciated, but I don't really care. I'm going to do it, pick it up, go. That is not Dave Canales. Mr. I wrote a book because I stepped out on my wife and we wrote a book about our healing, right? I'm very vocal in the media about things that are going on. Very, very transparent, right? So,
man, why are you bringing up old shit, man?
Well, I'm just saying. I'm not. And look, that's not a bad thing. Here's the reality. It's not a bad thing, right? I'm kind of like that. As a content creator, you have to be like that, right? Otherwise, I'd be I'd be extremely boring. You know what I'm saying? If that wasn't the case. Like, so in some respects, yeah, you gotta be transparent. You gotta be open to, having conversations. I do think sometimes you can give a little bit too much, because even though you might not be doing a specific thing, it'll look like you are. Let me give you an example. Last year, it seems like every time somebody from in that room, I don't know if it was Mike, if it was Alex, if it was Joe, if it was David, whoever it was in that room when they were having those press conferences, if they pressed on him just the smallest bit about that running back situation, what'd you see the next week? It looked like there was an immediate reaction to what was being said to him in the media about the running back room. Even though I think more of him than that. I don't think that was the case, but that's what it looked like. Why? Because he talked too much. It's just like with Matt Rule. Like Matt Rule used to tell us everything. I'm like, dog, shut up. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to say everything. Like some stuff you can keep to yourself, right? And I'm not saying that Dave Canales doesn't do that, but I do think that he prides himself on being transparent. And I think it works in his favor. That's why I think this will work because of what Joe is saying. A head coach is supposed to be face of the organization. We talked about that earlier. This stuff with the defensive stuff, man, and the whole situation with playing rookies or whatever that might look like. Hey, man, when I walk over to other position groups, he said it in his press conference last week. I just played it a moment ago. When I walk over, look, it's a little bit of an uptick when I walk over into this, like my man Tony said, shaking the tree, shaking honey out the tree. Like, look, yeah, I'm walking over here to see what's going on. What's good? Last year, look, you never know. He might have good relationships with guys on that side of the football that's saying like, yo, coach, let me tell you something. We got guys over here that's really not working how they're supposed to be working. These guys are very talented. You could probably get more out of them, but they don't really believe in EJ like that. They love you. They'll listen to you, but they ain't really rocking with EJ like that. Why else would he say that? He said that for a specific reason. I walk over to a specific group of people and I see an uptick. I see a change. That's because you got allies over there. You got people telling you what's really going on over there, right? And I'm going to tell you who I believe one of those allies are. D. Bates. I believe from a coaching perspective, D. Bates is one of the biggest allies. Why? Man, I was a freaking special teams coach. You know how many people get stuck doing that year after year? Man, Chase Blackburn had some good years as a special team coach, and he got stuck there for years. You know what I'm saying? Now, he ain't that anymore, but for years he was stuck as a special teams coach. D. Bates was a special team coach for 2 years, and where's he at now? Working with the linebackers. He's still going to be overseeing special team stuff, but he's also getting more responsibility because what's his track? Defensive coordinator. Wouldn't surprise me if it happens within a year or two. It wouldn't surprise me if they're prepping him for it to be with us. In absence, if Ejiro Evero is going to move on or whatever that looks like, right? It would not surprise me if the next trajectory is him. Wouldn't surprise me at all, because that's just how Dave rolled. We see it with Brad Izzy. That's part of people's worry. We ain't never seen this guy call plays before. It's all good. You never saw Shane either. You didn't see Jonathan Gannon before him, or on the other side of the ball anyway. But you didn't see Jonathan Gannon. You didn't see Mike Kafka. You didn't see. I mean, we could go on down the list. You didn't see Sean Payton. You know what I'm saying? Nobody saw Nick Saban when he was on the staff at Cleveland. You know what I'm saying? Until he got to North Texas. So yeah, it don't matter when you see him. Is do you get to? That's important, right? So shout out to Joe Clarity for the super chat. I want to acknowledge a couple of other chats that I've seen out here. My man Nick Tri-State, salute to Nick Tri-State. He said, I understand what Orlovsky is saying. However, isn't life about adapting? Canales trying to adapt into being a full-time head coach. Not that he wasn't before. It's just overseeing everything for real now. Hey, I agree. I saw my dog, PPP, in the chat. Shout out to my man, PPP. My bad. I hit the wrong one. If you haven't been over to Panthers Prime Podcast and seen the interview between myself and Panthers Prime Podcast, man, I had an absolute great time, man. I'm telling you, he's one of the best content creators in this space. He has a community of people that are, super dope. And one of those being Nick Tri-State that I see in here right now, and is always contributing. I appreciate him. But man, what a great community he has over there, man. So if you're not subscribed to him, go check him out. It's really cool. Shout out to my man 803 at AVI and Terrence State in here. But Brad, before we move on, do you want to comment any more about this specific topic of Canales and the coaching situation?
Yeah, I mean, because we are of that age now to where we are seeing in real time guys trying to cement and to start a legacy. Canales is a young guy. He's got a lot of energy. He has the ability to go from, he was at Bryce's camp this weekend, you know what I'm saying? Out there running with the little kids. He's got a lot of energy. So it's not to me so much of him micromanaging, but it's the thing where he's showing I'm available. I care about what you're doing. I don't think he's over there running down coaches, trying to make sure that they have the anxiety of knowing the big man's here. But we all understand, we've all been in jobs. We've all, I worked in factories during college. And, when the lead man or supervisor comes, people work a little harder. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? People try to, they try to mimic and look like they're focused. You know what I'm saying? When before you see them daydreaming, and then all of a sudden you see the lead man or the supervisor walk on the floor, and then 110% locked in.
Mm-hmm.
That's just one of those things that, that to me garners the uptick that he, references. But we didn't see the ascension of a Bill Parcells, who is a person who you would say is like the quintessential CEO,
Yeah.
who has beneath him, Bill Belichick, Andy Reid, a young Mike McCarthy, all these different guys. We didn't see that in the early 90s. We didn't know what Bill Belichick was going to be. We didn't know what Mike McCarthy was going to be. We didn't know even what Andy Reid was going to be. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just wasn't that kind of microscope shown on assistant coaches and the comeuppance. And then just, the inroads that we have now through content creation, and then just, Panthers social media, Panthers media. I mean, they show you like who's going to be who. Also, we have a lot of young assistants.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of young coaches. I mean, I know our roster is, other than, JJ Jansen, we have pretty much one of the youngest rosters in football.
Yeah.
And so you need to, I wouldn't say so much micromanage, but you got to keep your eye on things. If you're trying to foster the culture that I believe he's trying to foster here and make it a team game, like I'm watching this show on Netflix currently where it's a sheriff who is unlocking a pod in a detention facility, and he's allowing the inmates to, kind of govern themselves, but he wants them to do it without, the normal race issues, the normal fighting, and the normal, I'll pay you a couple soups or you let me get some cigarettes, all that different kind of stuff, and the disrespect to the officers. And they're going through this whole timeline of like a 6-week program to see if they'll allow this program to go on, in perpetuity. And so that's just one of those things, like, you are allowing these guys the freedom, but you still have to follow up, see who's working hard, see who's coaching hard, see who is getting away from the system, see who's someone who is a potential problem. I mean, you have to follow up on these things. And I think that's more than micromanaging. I just think that's due diligence.
Yeah. Agreed, man. Shout out to Sean DP 99 said, "Oh, the sweet timbre of Jon and Brad on a Monday." Salute to you, brother.
All right.
So appreciate y'all, man. Make sure to smash that like button. We got 34 likes. We're only streaming on YouTube today. 80 people in the chat right now. If you don't mind to smash that like button, we would appreciate that so much. Shout out to my man Rockstar Report, another Panther content creator. And let's see, Anthony Pick, before we move on, said, "Remember last year when Canales, after the Patriots game, seemed to admit that he didn't have control over the defense. Now he'll be able to oversee everything." Yeah, there was I remember that clip. I don't remember exactly what he said, but I know we reacted to it, so I'd have to go back and pull it. But all right, so let's move right along.
And we got murked.
And we sure did.
You know what I mean? Our defense didn't like they was on the field. So
period.
If that's a part of what he's doing now, because we talked about that. One, I mean, two things here. One, this is what everyone wanted.
Yep.
I remember you talked about it. I remember several content creators were like, "Man, I'd like to see it open up." I know Real Ball Watcher called him conservative Canales. You know what I mean? So they would like to see like a more fast-paced, open offense. I know, I mean, you're a big fan of the RPO with Bryce, letting him do a lot of things on the fly. I more so look back to the first week of, 2024 when we come out firing and he throws an interception and we're immediately behind the 8 ball. And I think it's kind of his growth pattern required a little bit more of a put some reins on the kid. But I do remember the San Francisco game, and I like all fans, I was angry of the fact that we were still running the ball, late in the game. But it's still one of those things where, like, earlier, they tried to give Bryce the autonomy on the QB rollout. And if he would have just ran it in, boom, we're up, we're cruising. And instead he throws the interception. And our defense played really well at the start of that game. So one, you're just allowing your players and your coaches to mature. And that's a good thing because Bryce is going to be in year 4. This is year 3. You see some flashes. Year 4 is when they pop.
Yeah.
That's for, Peyton Manning, Phillip Rivers, Drew Brees. So my hope is this is the year that he pops. You know what I mean? And then also, we have all had issues with how EJ calls his defense and how EJ operates.
Mm-hmm.
And micromanaging wise, like I think needs to be a little bit more of that on defense. I think the thing with EJ was when Canales come in, and most coaches won't put up with this, but Canales kind of had to take the job that was offered to him, and they were like, "This is your coordinator on defense."
Yeah.
I don't know what you were thinking. I don't know if you wanted to bring a guy in, but what's going to happen is Ejiro Evero is going to be your defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
So him being able to go and look at the defense and show guys like Derek Brown, Lathan Ransom, Mike Jackson, JC, that I'm over here, and like you were saying, the allies, like I'm over here and I'm looking at what's going on. And if there is an issue, I'm going to address it, and you'll know it because you see me.
Because you'll see me and you'll see the result. Like it
Right.
won't be.
You don't feel like you're disconnected from me.
Absolutely. Yes. And I think that's important, because if you want to know a way to get veterans uninterested and to start losing hope is when they feel like, you have bad management or you have bad position, coordinating groups or whatever, and there's nothing being done about it, right? So that is an easy way to get people to, kind of start checking out. And that's the last thing you want, especially if you get like big dogs to start checking out. That would be a bad thing. But yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
we've seen it.
Yeah, we have.
I mean, we've all been NFL fans for a long time, and we've seen when players check out.
Yeah.
It happened last year in Jacksonville. Like it's a scary proposition.
Yep. Yes, indeed. All right, so moving right along, man. So OTAs have started. OTAs have commenced at this point, and there was a lot of things that I took away from it. A lot of really cool nuggets that kind of came out. So we'll talk about a few of those. One of those being this, Brad, and I got to be honest with you. If you've been a fan of this channel for any amount of time, if you're new here, if you've looked at any of my back catalog, you will know that I was in support of BY9 from day one. And I have not wavered in that support. I have indeed been one of those people who have been concerned. And I try to be as, I try to be objective, right? In some respects, right? But just like I told PPP, and I have no problem admitting this out loud, yes, I am biased, right? Of course, we all are. We're biased about our kids. We're biased about our job. My dad will kick your daddy's behind, all that kind of stuff, the whole Jackie Chan and, Chris Tucker thing or whatever from Rush Hour. So, yeah, we all have biases, right? Some biases can be healthy, but I think it's important that if you have a bias, to at least be open to hearing a different side, right? I'm open to hearing those who, well, some people, not all people. Some people are irrational when it comes to, especially for this guy specifically. I ain't trying to hear what they got to say. But at least the people who can be halfway objective. PPP is one of those people. He kind of came around on Bryce. My man Pop. Pop is one of those people. He's not a Bryce guy, but he's very much objective and open to being able to listen to things when he sees new information, right? Even though he gonna stand on his heel, just like me, right? So imagine me looking like a proud father when I saw Bryce.
All right.
You heard him. Hey, man, look. Adam Thielen, Jadeveon Clowney, Brian Burns. How many times have we heard in the media? Because I heard people say, this was one narrative I seen going around. Is this the first time you've done this? And I know you said, of course not, or I hope not. I would beg to differ. Because we got plenty of examples of people going around talking about how they wish Bryce would be more vocal. Jadeveon Clowney, his first year here. Hey, man, you can be a little bit more loud. You can talk. You know what I'm saying? You ain't got to shell up. Brian Burns. calling him Bryce Spice or whatever. And, you know, hey, man, you can be a little bit more like, you can be Adam Thielen. Hey, man, we tried to tell, and this was just this past season. Adam Thielen was talking about how proud he was of Bryce because he seen that clip running around of Bryce Young going off after the Saints game in the locker room and being like, man, that's the kind of stuff that we always wanted to push him towards. I said this when he was in, you know, you talked about it. You said, man, he played at Alabama. Yes, he did, but he played for some big personalities. He didn't have to be that guy. Nick Saban will be that for you. You got a problem with somebody on the team, you don't even got to say it. I'll just look at your body language. Because either me or or Bill O'Brien, we're going to get to it. You know what I'm saying? You ain't got to worry about it. So now you're on a team where you don't have a lot of that going on, right? Dave Canales ain't that guy. The people who need to be that are not that on this team. That's where you come in. It's okay for you to say that. I talked about it. Cachet. What do you have at your disposal now? I am the passing leader of the Carolina Panthers history, single game passing leader. I orchestrated our rookie of the year wide receiver by passing him the ball. And I almost won a playoff game the first time that's been done in 10 freaking years here. I can say that. I can say what I got to say now because I got stuff to back me up. I don't have to even tout those things, right? Because those aren't, some of those are remarkable stats, but they're not like anything that people would look at and be like, well, yeah, but you still ain't really done nothing. Yeah, true, be that as it may, but I've done some things. I've done more than you, right? So here's the next step of that. Here's what I'm waiting on. I talked about this on the phone with you last night. What I'm waiting for now is for that to happen, but a little bit further. Now I want it to be personal. Hey, 17, come here for a second. Let me talk to you. You drop another one of my passes, and I'm going to have them put you on the bench, right? But here's also what I want to see. Hey, 17, you are extremely talented, my brother, and I need you. I want to see that on the sideline. I want to see you go to him. It don't need to be Dave Canales all excited talking about he about to cry because Xavier Lee had a good game. You see what you did against Atlanta? Do that again. Be available for me, and I will look your direction. If you start feeling down for any reason, come to me and tell me, man, I'm open and you're not seeing me. Bet, I got you. That's the next step of this. It cannot just be that. Because that's cool. That's good for the rookies. That's good for Mitchell Evans. That's good for Jatavian Sanders, who's still trying to find his way. That's cool for them. You've built that cachet with T-Mac. You've built that with Coker because y'all have grown together. Now I need you to tap on the shoulder of somebody who could be a difference maker for you and tell him, hey, bro, I need you. I talked about it. McCole Hardman dropping a pass in the Super Bowl, down on himself, comes down to the sideline. Who's right there in his face? Patrick Mahomes. Grabbing him by the shoulder pads, inside the collar. Hey, bro, listen to me. Nah, don't get down. You going to make a play for me today. Who caught the game-winning touchdown in the Super Bowl, Brad?
McCole Hardman.
That's the next iteration. That's the next step that I want to see from him. I don't want to just see you chewing guys out. Pause. I want to see you building them up as well, in addition to holding them accountable, right? We reaching that point. We reaching that step. Because I think if you do that, if this is the Bryce Young, or I even go a step further, I want to see y'all, because I know y'all got smoke for each other. I know. Bro, you dropped a pass for me in Philly that would have made you and me a legend. You know what I'm saying? I know you got problems there with that. Passes that you was a ball stripped away from you in a game that we still end up winning, and you still made a big play on the last drive against New Orleans, right? Climbing the ladder on third down. I remember that. But you still had one took away from you, bro. And that counted as an interception against me. And these fools out here that be looking at my stats, that's what they look at. They look at those numbers. They look at you running, a slant and getting blown up at 220 pounds by a 5'8" corner and can't understand it. Like, what? Wait, what? And the ball just toppling out of your hands. Stop dropping passes for me, bro. You know what I'm saying? Maybe that's what it takes. Maybe we need the Josh Norman, Cam Newton moment between Xavier Legette and Bryce Young. And then they come out and this league is set ablaze by a 40 touchdown season by Bryce Young, who is 100% capable of doing so, because he finally confronted Xavier Legette, because I think you're talented. I like you as a person, but I don't think you believe in yourself a lot, and I'm tired of it. I am so looking forward to seeing that. I hope we get, I heard somebody say that it felt like training camp energy. Oh boy, I hope we see 9 and 17 go at it. Please. Because I think that's the swift kick in his behind and in Bryce's, both of them realizing that, look, I know I signed a 5th-year option. I know that they just drafted Chris Brazell, but I'm looking at you eye to eye, pal. We could both be out of here in less than 24 months. Both of us. Let's figure it out together. But it's going to be some hard conversations. I'm tired of tiptoeing around the fact that you dropping passes. You tired of tiptoeing around the fact that you dirting balls at my feet. And we're going to get into it as a result. But we're going to grow as a result of it too. Oh, yes. Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, Pop said in the chat, he out here cussing.
Right. Hey.
Hey, he's streaming them together. You know what I'm saying? He hit a quick, boom, boom. You know what I mean? 2, yeah, I'm gonna have to put some of that toothpaste back in the tube, bro. You was going in. Of course, comes back to Xavier Legette, but you do have a point on quite a bit of that. But we've already, fleshed a lot of that out. But here's my thing. Bryce Young does not want to fight Xavier Legette because he's going. Cam Newton was 6'6", 260 pounds, man. I don't want him to fight Xavier Legette. I don't want that to happen because it'll be one of those snatch up, whatever. And then it'll be a thing where it'll be kind of like a black eye to where your quarterback, who was small, because Bryce, to me, is very close to being Russell Wilson. This right here proves to me that he's more genuine. First of all, I don't know what I would have done being on the Seattle sideline when we were kicking their teeth in during the playoffs 2016. And he's like, it's going to be the greatest comeback ever, guys. It's going to be the greatest comeback ever. It's going to be the greatest comeback ever. I wouldn't have been trying to hear that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not trying to hear that. Just go out there and stop throwing interceptions. We have a good defense. We're going to try to get this done. You are putting us at a disadvantage. We're tired of hearing it. And if you actually followed any of that, Richard Sherman and those guys could not stand him, and they felt like he was protected by the coaching staff. Anything they would say about the offense, film would get turned off, guys would be brought in and told, like personally, face-to-face, ease up on Russell. And they came to a point where they actually resented him. Here, it's not like that now because you've heard Derek Brown. You've heard those guys. I mean, they ride with Bryce. Bryce is their dude. And this is just I like what you said, a swift kick in the patootie that he wants guys to focus. It's not raining anymore. They said the offense looked real sloppy. And this is just the kind of thing that most quarterbacks are going to be saying. They got the microphone in their face or not when they say it. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I understand the excited, nature of us seeing this because Bryce is a little guy. And I give him credit on that because if you're a little guy and you try to come in and do like the Baker Mayfield thing, you know what I'm saying, where it's just walking like, what's the UFC fighter?
Conor
McGregor. You're walking like Conor McGregor. You know what I'm saying? Like you and I get like certain machismo you have to be an NFL quarterback, but I think this kid earned it the right way. Mm-hmm. I think he has earned his teammates' trust, especially the way he played in the playoff game.
Yeah. And
this is just that natural maturation of, a guy, he's coming to age, he's coming to his own, he's coming to contract years. And hey, what I like about it, what I took away from it is, hey, assholes, it's not raining anymore. Let's tighten this up. This year is determined about how the rest of my life goes. Whether I get that next contract, we win Super Bowls, I become an analyst, everybody talks about Bryce Young forever, or I'm on the first thing smoking to be a backup in San Francisco or something.
Not, hey,
So I
look,
like what
not
you're
just
saying
how
about
their life, his life goes, how theirs do too. Think about the residual
that.
effects
Yeah,
of what you just
right.
said. You know what I'm saying? If you think about the fallout of what you just said, if Bryce doesn't succeed this year, there's a chance that Dave Canales is on the hot seat. There might even be a chance that Dan Morgan's on the hot seat. Dave Tepper might, get beside himself again and be ready to blow this whole thing up. And now you just spent all this work doing all this stuff, and then everybody, it's a fallout from everyone, right? That's why I'm saying, like, look, and when I said fight, I'm not talking like the Cam Newtons. I'm talking about more the confrontation. Like, of course, Xavier Legette, well, one, I can tell you, Bryce got allies on that team. If Xavier Legette did, even if Bryce started it, there would be people that would intervene and be like, hey, man, you don't want to do that. You know what I'm saying? Plus, I don't think Bryce is at that type of point. What I do believe, though, is that Bryce is at a point now where I will confront you specifically. If you drop a pass that came to you because I'm trying to build trust in you, I will come to you specifically in front of everybody and confront you about it. And then you're going to find out who XL really is and who he isn't. Because you could come back at him and say, okay, well, maybe not float him at my feet. And then y'all have that back and forth, and then y'all build that brotherhood, because now we done got everything we needed to say out of the way. Now we can really start balling. That's when I think things can really change. Because right now, I do still feel like there's a passive aggressive based on the conversation he had with Cam Newton and based on the things that, Bryce Young hasn't said. And the point is, hasn't said anything. Because sometimes, look, I'll give you an example. Years ago, now we'll talk about some culture stuff, but I'm gonna just kind of dive into this for a second, right? DJ Academics, right? Love him or hate him, he is what he is, right? But years ago, DJ Academics got flamed by Desus and Mero, and he was like crying on stream and all this other kind of stuff, right? And then like people just kept throwing jabs at him. Him and Joe Budden doing everything, struggling. Joe would throw jabs at him on the show, and people saying all this kind of stuff. But boy, when Rory and Mal and Freddie Gibbs got on him one good time, and he been on a tear ever since. He say whatever he say unabashed, because all that hurt that I had from all those years, I'm pouring on y'all. Y'all didn't even really say anything that's really that serious to me, but I'm pouring it on y'all. I feel like that's what's happening here between Bryce and Xavier Legette. I haven't really said what I really truly want to say, right? How I really truly feel. But boy, when it comes out, it looks like this. He wasn't even necessarily saying this to someone like Legette. But you ain't never heard Bryce talk like that, ever. So it could be that there's frustration boiled up between him, and not just them. It could be other situations as well. It could be, me feeling like I got a lot of pressure on me and things haven't necessarily been fair for me since I've been here. But that's the NFL, so I don't want to hear that, right? But I'm just saying, like, I just feel like that conflict would feed families. That's all I'm going to say. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, bro.
Oh, no, you good. I just always give you a little something because it always comes back to Legette. In the paper they talked about it was drops and slips and different things like that. And there are other people on the team, but I know the fans and a lot of people always go back to Legette. And I get it. Kid was a first round pick. He hasn't lived up to the billing yet. But I saw them working out this summer, and it seemed to be more so of them getting on the same page and them working together towards better things than it has been, over the previous off seasons. Because we saw what it was last off season. It really didn't look like Legette. I mean, he was putting in work with the whole route god thing, but it kind of like he wasn't focused.
Mm-hmm.
And also part of it too is, him becoming a media darling. I mean, he's at the Churchill Downs, and he's doing all these interviews. He did an interview with Kay, whatever, that used to be on Good Morning Football.
Kay Adams, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Kay Adams. Up in Adams, that's it. And so I feel like the kid's really taking it seriously. I mean, you can just tell in the way he looks, making those kind of changes to your body in an off season are a big deal just from, couch potatoes perspective. It's like, man, you put that kind of effort in, and we were talking about that. We'll talk about that more later. too about just how guys were working this off season. But it really was one of those days, and I've read about that in the past where it's raining or they're coming. It's been 10 weeks straight before they go into the bye week, and it's just a sloppy practice. Guys aren't hustling, guys are dropping passes, guys are joking around, and someone has to flip out because they're human.
Right.
And that's just what it'll be. But I like the fact that this kid really is telling everybody to lock in, because the coach clearly wants it to be more of a player-led team. And he wants to give his players the kind of autonomy to run things to a certain extent. And so Bryce is just stepping up. And I do like the fact that he stepped up.
Yep. Big time. I'm going to tell you another thing I like that I saw, man. Boy, I like this. But you see it. 2-5 out there running and cutting, Brad. They said he looked confident, Brad. They say he looked mad confident, Brad. I'm telling you, this season will literally, you can bet against that record that you and I predicted based on how he does this season. If Jonathan Brooks is 60% of who he was coming out of college this season, and that's what we see, but we out of here. We out of here because we're going to be able to run the ball. I think Jonathan Brooks can be to Carolina what Jonathan Taylor is to Indianapolis. I think there's that level of talent there. I never will forget Mike Kay saying, it was like, and Mike Kay was talking about this just a couple of weeks ago. He was like, man, when you see Brooks in practice, it just looks different. It's just different. He runs faster than everybody else. He's bigger than all the other, running backs not named A.J. Dillon. It's just different, And so having that and then that pass catching ability out of the backfield is, look, I know the big story right now, the big, issue with a lot of people is the whole tight end thing, right? I get it. I just think you can't fix it all. You got somewhere is going to be left off until you're able to fix it, right?
Right.
You would hope that you could fix it all, but if he's healthy, I'm okay with what we got in the tight end room as long as those guys can block. Just block for him. His ability to catch out of the backfield and be a de facto receiver will give you that extra, option underneath that kind of helps, free up your perimeter weapons in some respects. But, I'm excited nonetheless. I'll just say that.
But one is surprising to me that he gave up 24. I just thought that Lee was wearing that in, rookie minicamp as far as, all players just get a number and a jersey, and then things will change as you get closer to OTAs and then to training camp. So I just thought he was just wearing 24 because that was closer to, still had a 4 from the number he wore in college. And you can't get 4 here because, that's our guy T-Mac.
Of course.
That's his number. And then I see him wearing 25, and I'm like, oh, okay, so he did make the number switch. But I read a really cool article. Isaac talks about how he has been pushing against his rehab and going all the way up to the threshold that they will let him to go to. And that's just a kid that's willing to work hard. That's just a kid who is excited about the opportunity, and that's a kid who loves football.
Yes.
And what did Dan Morgan say when he became the GM? He's looking for dogs that love to play football. I'll never forget when Luke Kuechly told everybody he was retiring, and he was crying like a kid, and he was like, I just want to play. You know what I'm saying? And then you got guys out here that are dogging it. You got guys out here that are giving, half effort. And this kid's not one of them. And so if he can become our, Jahmyr Gibbs to, Chuba's David Montgomery, man, look out.
Yeah.
Because another part of that article it was talking about, or another part, it was another article, but he was talking about Chris Brazzell, and he was like, man, the thing about his speed, that also helps in the running game. Because if you run that RPO, you run some of that play action, and any of those guys commit to the run too early, he's going to run by him.
Mm-hmm.
So this kid, especially, and I'd always been talking about like the team building aspect of it, but this kid also, because first off, he was drafted second round. People wanted Mac Frazier, the center who went to Pittsburgh. And, you talked about, building Rome in a day, and we can't fix the tight end position as of now, but we've made a lot of strides towards shoring up our roster.
Mm-hmm.
Dan bet that he could get by with, Cade Mays, Brady Christensen, Austin Corbett, and these guys until he was able to draft a center or sign a center in, Luke Fortner and Sam Hecht. And so we've built this team, and you have guys that are in this kid's corner. And like, I've always liked the way the kid run. I'm like, if he could just get back to that after all these injuries, I mean, the kid's such a dynamic talent, catching the ball out of the backfield. We saw that with Christian McCaffrey, with the guy who's almost like a receiver level,
Mm-hmm.
running back out of the backfield. And then, I just really like the way his teammates have shown up for him. I mean, he got baptized about a month ago, and Tommy Tremble was there. Chuba was there. Guys have really supported this kid, and it's a camaraderie to where this kid doesn't run this hard. This kid doesn't work this hard just based off his own motivations. He's buying into what the team is building.
Yeah.
I remember in 2015, the big thing was everybody said that was the best locker room in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be one of the easiest locker rooms to get free agents to come to because people saw how we operated. And I feel like we're finally getting back to that, to where free agents want to come here. Now, and we have to pay them a little more now. But we, had a pretty crucial situation around, 2020, 2021, 2022. I mean, there was things we had to right, and there were guys we had to get rid of, people we had to move on from, players we had to accept, like, bad attitudes like Robbie Anderson, just to have players on the squad. But we're to the point now where we're building depth, and these guys actually care about each other. So when you see that kind of effort, pay attention, because that means these guys are fighting for each other. They're ready to play for each other. Mm-hmm. And when you see those kinds of additions, those kinds of output and the effort, and Bryce's the way he's stepping up as a leader, then it doesn't seem too hard to see a 12-5 happening.
Yeah. I'm standing on that, man. I don't know. You need players, right? Like, you need talented guys. This Brooks is a super talented running back who, if he didn't get think about the succession from Bijan Robinson to him. And there were people that were suggesting that he might actually be a little bit better, right? Might be better suited for, NFL ground and pound and all that kind of stuff, right? Especially because of what he does out of the backfield, which no doubt Bijan Robinson can also do. But that ACL injury, we thought so much of him. Dallas also thought so much of him that he still was going to get drafted in the second round regardless, right? But if he didn't tear his ACL, we'd have never had a shot at him because he'd have been a first-round pick without question.
Jerry was waiting.
Yeah. So that just goes to show you the cachet. And he's just one of those guys, man, to me, and you talked about it, man, like these guys rally around him and stuff like that, partly because he's just a really solid dude. The other side of it is this, man, like it's just certain guys, man. You saw Victor Wembanyama, the emotion that he had off of beating, because I know people are like, man, it was just the Western Conference Finals. No, it wasn't just that. You just beat the world champions. They just literally swept through the playoffs up until they got to you, right? And you beat them 3 times in the regular season. That's number one. Number two, you and Chet Holmgren have history. You know what I'm saying? Like, Chet done gave you the business back in the day when you were still developing, and he was kind of on his, come up, and he got a title already, right? So there's that, right? And not for nothing, hey man, you're reaching the NBA Finals as a 22-year-old, right? But those guys standing around him, they just know. They look at it, they see the talent, they just know. That's the same thing I feel about guys like Brooks. That's how I feel about guys like T-Mac. That's how I feel about guys like Derek, J.C. Horn, who I believe is going to be one of the biggest surprises of this entire draft class is going to be Lee Hunter. Not surprising in a way, we know he's going to be good, but I think Lee Hunter, we just drafted our version of Milton Williams. I think he's going to be that good, right? When you step off the bus with those guys, I don't care who I'm playing. I believe I got a chance to win because we got him on my team. I'm not playing against him. I'm playing with him. And we have him on my team, and he's really good, right? Because like Lee Hunter, for example, if his ascension is anything like when he went from UCF to Texas Tech, I mean, think about it. You went from UCF, where you were a good player, to Texas Tech, where you became an All-American, right? And on the best run defense, and you were the catalyst of that, being the nose, the best run defense in the entire country. And you helped flip that roster and it flipped that team overnight to a point where they got to the college football playoff. You see what I'm saying? So that kind of stuff matters when those guys get off the bus. We notice. You know what I'm saying? If you're on the opposite team, you know this. You played organized ball. There were certain guys. I remember, my brother's last year at T.C. Robertson High School in Asheville, North Carolina. There was a guy that got off the bus, and I will never forget this. The guy gets off the bus. He's wearing number 31 from Shelby Crest, and he does the throat slash thing as he's walking down the pathway to come down to play the game. And this dude was a baller in high school and a baller in college and a baller and a Super Bowl winner in the NFL. And that guy was, what's my man that played for New England, the linebacker that played at Florida? Brandon Spikes. Yep. They couldn't do nothing with him in that game. My brother was one of the rushing leaders in Western North Carolina. He had like 26 yards that game. They couldn't do nothing with Spikes that entire game. I'll never forget it, right? So when you walk off the bus with guys like that, you just know he gonna show up. I just need to do my part. If I do my part, it's up. We're gonna really make some noise today, right? So that excitement about Brooks is a real thing. Here's another thing people are excited about. I saw this article that I wanted to read from Panthers Roundtable. You might not be able to see it that well, so I'll read it for you. And this is about free agents, man. Another free agent that the Carolina Panthers may have found. With the NFL OTAs period fully underway, the Carolina Panthers and head coach Dave Canales have begun their quest to defend their NFC South title for the 2026 season. This offseason, the Panthers did an outstanding job of adding multiple new faces to the franchise, including 2026 first-round pick Monroe Freeling and second-round pick Lee Hunter. And while the newest rookies may help the team for the upcoming season, there's one rookie who has made a name for himself this offseason. When asked about which rookie stood out to him during OTAs, Panther defensive tackle Cam Jackson told the Charlotte Observer's Mike Kay that 2026 undrafted free agent defensive end Aaron Hall, don't be afraid, has been a surprising addition thus throughout the off season. Let's read a little bit more. Hall, despite going undrafted in the 2026 NFL Draft, was a difference maker for the Duke Blue Devils throughout his 5 years with the program. After having a minimal role on defense in his first 2 years with the Blue Devils in Durham, native NC has become a rotational piece in the front four during the 2023 season, finishing with 27 tackles and back. We were talking about Aaron Hall taking advantage of his opportunities. Brad, I'm sure you're still there with me. You might have muted yourself, but I am back if you're back. But they were talking about how Aaron Hall has showed up in camp and done a really masterful job at, giving showing his abilities and doing the things that he's supposed to be doing. I am so sorry, y'all. It looks like the stream had actually cut there for a second. So if you're back and you're with me, please hit a 1 in the chat. Brad, if you are with me, you can take yourself off mute. If not, we will get this thing back up and running the way we're supposed to. So we'll put Brad right there. Type a 1 in the chat if you can hear me. My apologies. The stream kind of cut out on me there for a second, but we are back. 1 in the chat if you hear me. I don't see y'all yet, but I'm sure the chats will start coming through. Shout out to my man Brad. I'm sure you're here somewhere, but we'll keep talking until I hear from you. Okay, y'all can hear me. Perfect. All right. So what I was talking about was Aaron Hall showing up in OTAs and giving us a lot to look forward to. I am excited for that because I think the more – okay, we got Brad back. Brad, you there? Brad, you there with us?
I am. Can you hear me?
All right, man. Sorry about that. All right, so they're typing a 1 in the chat. We had a little bit of a streaming issue there for just like 2 seconds.
Yeah, because I was like, I'm here, and then he was not answering. I said, oh man.
Yeah. All right. So I was talking about Aaron Hall from Duke, which I'm very excited about because, you know, the one thing that I talked about being a little bit concerned about is going into year 2 with some of our edges, right? The Jalen Phillips signing was obviously a big deal, but I was a little bit concerned about what this would look like, and I'm not so sure that he'll be a dedicated edge necessarily. But I'm interested to see, what he becomes. But this was exciting for me. I don't know if you saw anything about this, about Aaron Hall coming from Duke. But this was pretty exciting, seeing that because of the depth that you get to create with guys like Nick Scorton. If you get guys injured, you're starting to now flip it to where it's like, okay, there was the DJ Wanham in the beginning, and then you didn't really have a whole lot after that other than like Gibson and guys like that. Well, now you got, Princely Umamielen, who, by the way, looks jacked. I saw a picture of him floating around where he looked, in really good shape. And then, of course, Nick Scorton, going into his second season. Pat Jones coming back, off of injury. And so now you got another piece, another wrinkle you can add into that with Aaron Hall and to have some real good depth. What were your takes on that?
Well, he was a guy I talked about watching out for as an undrafted free agent. He was definitely a guy that you've seen, if you're a ACC football fan, which I am. And so I saw the kid play, very violent. But the thing is, I'm with you because my biggest thing is creating depth. After rules like last year, and Brandon Smith, second round pick as a linebacker, and it was just that first year, Frank Wright and that regime cut all of those players,
Mm-hmm.
and we had no depth. And anytime anyone got hurt, you held your breath. We were lucky that we had Brady Christensen to go up and down the line and play all those different positions, but otherwise, on the team, we had very little depth. And that's one thing I'm so excited about. Like, Dan has built depth to where if guys get hurt, it's always going to be some drop off from your star players,
Mm-hmm.
but it shouldn't be where the backups look like they're totally unready to be on the field.
Right.
That's the kind of stuff we were doing. We were going and signing, 38-year-old defensive ends who were, struggling to get things done. You were having 16-yard passes to Jamar Chase in the middle of the field, him, taking it to the house. Really looked inept. And so this is just another bee in the bonnet of the depth that we're building. This is the kind of kid comes in, makes a little noise in preseason. We keep him, build him up. A couple years, he's playing valuable minutes.
Yeah.
Turk Wharton has a huge contract that we paid him after we weren't able to get Milton Williams. Neck surgery, couple years, he's going to be another free agent. And we're going to have someone to plug and play. And wouldn't it be great for us to plug in an undrafted free agent?
Yeah. And
that can really give us valuable minutes.
Right. That's the stuff to me that when you start being able to have guys like that rotationally, that's what takes you to the next level as a franchise. That's what creates your consistency. Is like, because everybody can draft a superstar or two, right? Everybody, or three.
Yeah. Look at the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah. Where's your depth? Where's your offensive line depth? That's why I think the Monroe Freeling pick, I've come, like in the beginning, obviously, like I said, there was other directions I wanted to go. I always thought it was the right pick. I've changed my stance on not only just thinking it was the right pick, it's the pick I love now, right? I love that pick because if he, which I think he will hit, I think he's going to be good. I don't know how great he'll be, but if he is, he'll be the type of great that can last a decade or longer. You know what I'm saying? Because he's always available. And he's just a freak. He's a freak athlete. You know what I'm saying? For his size and just speed and just, so it was the right pick. So I'm looking forward to seeing his development. But it feels good to see that they're forward thinking in ways that they want to be that type of consistent moving forward. So that's encouraging. That's extremely encouraging, extremely exciting as well. So now I don't know this, and we're going to jump off here in just a second because my computer is getting a workout. Do you do you,
Hey,
look,
real quick. I like you know what you were just talking about. Like, and Anthony Pick 5401 said that's what happens when you can't draft and you have to supplement middling free agents. And Dan has fixed that really quick, though. I mean, he really has jumped out, because you think about 2014, 2015, everyone was beside themselves when we took Star Latulele and we took K1 Short in the second round. I was ecstatic because I understand how trench warfare affects the entirety of a game. If you make a team one-dimensional in the NFL, everyone's good enough to shut down whatever that one dimension is. Even if you don't got great, cornerbacks, safeties, you got young guys, you got guys that are slow, you got a Roman Harper. If a team's got to pass every down, they're going to be smart enough to devise a coverage blitz scheme to shut that down if they can't run the ball.
Yeah.
And for about 2 years, teams couldn't run the ball on us at all. And so with us putting together this kind of depth at defensive tackle, defensive end edge, it's going to make teams one-dimensional. And one thing we noticed last year, minus Nick Scott, we have one of the most formidable secondaries in the NFL. You're not going to run past Mike Jackson. You're not going to run past, other than, apparently there was a bunch of banana peels on the field when we played New Orleans that first time. You're not going to be able to pass on us. So the fact that we add such a havoc record like Lee Hunter in the second round, and then paired him with the guy who is a lot of times described as unblockable in Derek Brown. Then you add a Jalen Phillips, who was top 4 in the NFL in pressures. I think you said the stat yesterday that he had more pressures than our entire defensive line by himself.
Close to
all year. And you pair that with a second-year Scorton, it looks like I don't know if you watch The Boys or anybody in the chat watches The Boys, but it looks like Princely Monmielin went and got some of that serum, because that dude is jacked up. Like, he got some of that that ooze that they had in Turtles 2 that made the Super Shredder.
Yeah.
And then Pat Jones coming back healthy. I mean, we got a very formidable defensive line. And when you do that and you bring those guys in like Aaron Hall, Cam Jackson in the 5th round, you don't have to go out and overpay for guys like Turk. You don't.
Yeah.
And that's another part of that, adding depth and getting to where we need to be.
Absolutely. Yeah. That makes me extremely excited. Shout out to you guys in the chat. I saw my man Fayette Nam, he had commented back about XL. And then he said, I hope he turned it around. So he kind of gave him some grace. Yeah. Anthony Pick said JP's going to be a beast. T. Thompson said he loved the Monroe Freeling pick. So yeah, I mean, a lot of talent, man. Like I said, and with a guy like, Jalen Phillips, man, it's just one of the things with our guys is like the edges we have. Some of those guys are just a bit, I wouldn't call them undersized, but they're just not that. You know what I'm saying? Like, this dude's just he a unit, bro. So for him to be athletic and to be big like that, like, as long as you're creating pressure, it's just going to have a rippling effect down that defensive line. So the sack totals, man, you go look at some of these teams historically. I mean, I went back and even looked at the Legion of Boom. Like, the Legion of Boom's thing wasn't, the fact that they were, high sack margin, a high sack margin team. They didn't have guys that had 15, 20 sacks a season or nothing like that, right? But what they did have was a lot of pressure, and as a result of that pressure, that secondary thrived. And that's what I'm saying. Like, if you think this secondary is good now, my goodness, if you're able to produce, if you can become like top 10 in pressures, people will start looking at Carolina's secondary as the next Legion because it'll be that good. You know what I'm saying? Because you're already that good when you're not getting that much pressure. So imagine what pressure does, especially if you add in a wrinkle like, who knows what a guy like Will Lee, is he going to become your, a guy that kind of floats in that nickel spot? Corey Thornton, you know what I'm saying? Like, so you got backups for the backups, man. You got, a situation that you can, pivot to for your nickel. And then you got a situation for Mike Jack, who inevitably is more than likely going to, require a big time contract next year. And then you kind of flex the next guy in there, whether that's Corey or Will or whoever, which I think it would probably be more than likely Corey. I think they like Corey as more of an outside guy than they would at a big nickel or, anything else than that. But yeah, tons of depth, man. Tons of depth. There are no fall offs when it comes to a lot of positions, on this team. And you can make an argument that some of these guys some of the backups may end up being better than the guys that are in their place. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what makes this so fascinating. It's just got to be all put together. That's the thing that's the only really big concern. I don't really have a concern personnel wise with Carolina, right? I don't. I must be clipping because they say I'm like streaming on that McDonald's Wi-Fi. So no, actually, it's the computer, man. I'm gonna be honest with you. So, my computer hard drive has kaputted. If you want to donate to the hard drive fund, Cash App $1 Carolina, donate to the hard drive fund because it's gonna be a little. These streams gonna be like this for a little bit. But
my man say, people, we need your money.
Yes. The hard drive fund $1 Carolina, but regardless, man, I just feel like from a personnel perspective, I'm not concerned about any personnel situation outside of tight end, obviously, because people, I don't worry about the tight ends as much as a lot of other people do. For one reason, yes, a good tight end will help you to be able to have. It'll help alleviate pressure on the perimeter, by having, opportunities in the seams and stuff like that. But I feel like you get that from time to time with these guys. And I think if they're all healthy, they'll all contribute, to some degree. I guess for me, like, cause I know a lot of people like go get David Njoku. I wouldn't do that personally. Like, you don't know what he's bringing to the room based on who, what he's seen in Cleveland, attitude, personality, all that kind of stuff. And I think that's important. You know what I'm saying? That said, I'm okay with that room. It's just got to all be put together right. It's the coaching. Do we have the type of defense that you could be more aggressive with? Is Dave Canales going to appeal to Ejiro Evero to be more aggressive? You know what I'm saying? Like that's going to be important. Somebody just said in the chat, what are they going to do with Zakee Wheatley? Well, how does he look in camp? Because if Zakee Wheatley looks like he's a difference maker, then there's going to be a dogfight between him and Nick Scott over that position more than likely. Right? So there's a lot on the table here. I'll just say that. A lot to be excited about. But it's all got to be put together. It's all got to be put together.
Well, I know it's gonna be Survivor Island on that nickel position.
100%.
You got Shaw Smith Wade, you got Lee, you got Corey Thornton. It's just and people are really, really excited about a couple of the undrafted free agents. The kid out of Notre Dame. People are really excited about these kids. So I mean, it's going to be a lot of competition, and it goes back to the old adage, iron sharpens iron, and people are made better through the fact that they've got to compete every day in, day out, practice. I'll never forget reading an article where Julius Peppers was like, man, having to go against Jordan Gross every day really prepares me for going against some of these great tackles in the NFL. And then Jordan Gross was like, I can't believe he's saying that because I feel like going against Julius Peppers, prepares me for going against these great defensive ends in the NFL. So when you've got that kind of competition across the board, I mean, how much better is Monroe Freeland going to be? Because he's going to be thrown into the fire to have to practice every day against Jalen Phillips.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And Nick Scorton's not easy passe thing. I mean, Nick Scorton's a full breakfast over there. So he's going to have to, step up quick, and he's going to have to, understand quick, this is what it's going to be. This is the speed of the NFL, because he's going to be going and practicing one of the top 4 pressure-rated guys in the NFL last year every day in practice. So we have just created a culture of competition. And, me and you talked about it last night, because guys say a lot of stuff in the media. But when Lee Hunter got that call from Derek Brown, he said, man, you better be ready to work. Yeah. And if you look at Jonathan Brooks, Princely Umanmielen, Nick Scorton, Jalen Phillips, Derek Brown, Mike Jackson, you look at these guys across the board and they've been working, man. Excel. You know what I mean? Like his physique change. These dudes are working. Bryce. And guys are going to have to step up. Guys are going to have to find out where they fit in. And the thing is, with the camaraderie of football, when you have guys that beat you out because they've worked harder and because they deserve it, all that's going to do is make you work harder. And all that's going to do is foster a community of resilience. Guys are going to want to bounce back. They're going to want to give better effort, and they're going to want to be able to compete when they get their opportunities. And that's something that I haven't seen since 2015 here. And then, what was it? 2012, 2011 in Seattle. Because it just seemed like Seattle just kept bringing guys off the bench and just punching us in the mouth. Guys we had never even seen before. Yeah. And that's the kind of environment that Dan and David Canales were kind of reared in. After Dan's playing days, he was in Seattle. Dave was in Seattle. And that's the kind of environment they have fostered here. And, you can just, you can hear it in my voice. I'm super hyped.
Same, man. Some of these, I mean, look, Seattle was built off of, finding, hidden gems. I mean, Richard Sherman is an example of what I think in their minds they would have wished they would have been able to do with DJ Johnson, a guy who didn't play. no, dead ass.
No, I'm with you.
Yeah, because Richard played corner and wide receiver at Stanford. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and it wasn't like full time at either. And so it was like, okay, we don't know what this kid's going to be, but we know he's talented. So we're going to bring him in and see what we can turn him into. And I think that that's the same thing they saw with DJ coming out of Oregon. But it is funny though, to just say that out loud, because, it is like, really? Like, you really think that?
Well, I mean, Richard Sherman was a genius, though, man. Richard Sherman, one of those guys that plays football that could have been a rocket scientist. He's like, I can never remember this kid's name. What's the kid that went to Florida State?
Myron Rolle. Yeah.
Yeah. That away. And he was just really smart. But like you said, since he had played both positions and had just turned to defense later in his career at Stanford, people were like, I don't know about him. So he went 5th round. But yeah, him, Brandon Browner, the real big talent was the kid out of Texas, the safety. Up until they got him, it was kind of a bunch of cast-offs.
Yeah.
So, and we doing it with same way, just, building talent.
So we got a super chat before we get out of here that I want to read really quick. This is coming from Anthony Johnson. Shout out to Anthony Johnson for the $5. He said, people say there's no excuse for Rivero, but the offense has been below average for a couple of years. I understand that. I would say that I don't think from a Rivero perspective, for me, Evero has shown his cachet, right? So he is what he is. And that's just it. you can have the best of the best with a Giro Vero, and it doesn't really change how he schemes things, right? It feels like to me he's like, look, this is my scheme. Find me people that work within it. Whereas with the offense in Dave Canales, it's like, okay, I clearly do have some limitations because of the quarterback that I have and his size and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to build things and tailor things around him to make sure that he's as comfortable as he can be. I think that's at least for me, I can't speak for everybody else. But for me, with Ivero, it just seems like a reluctance on certain things that he's just not going to change, right? I'm not going to be aggressive on defense. You know, whether it's a veteran quarterback, a young quarterback. Like, one thing I loved when we played, because look, even though we played them close, they still went 15-2 and went to the Super Bowl and got, twerked in the Super Bowl by the Philadelphia Eagles. But man, Spags on a couple of occasions was throwing 0 at Bryce Young. And I'm sure from Bryce's perspective, one, he probably took it as disrespect because he like, have you seen me in college and seen me in the NFL against the blitz?
I'm going to take it as disrespect.
I'm going to take it as disrespect. You feel me? Mm-hmm. And look, he made him pay for it on a big fourth down, made him pay for it on a second down going into the half. Like, so, you paid for it a few times, but it still didn't change anything. Make me pay for it then, because guess what kind of history I have? Rookie quarterbacks, second-year quarterbacks, young quarterbacks, period, they struggle against the blitz. You just happen to be one that doesn't, but I don't care. Still going to do it anyway. So that's why for that last drive against L.A., I'm still in the house, bro. I'm bringing the house at you. If I know I'm not able to create pressure, I'm going to create pressure somehow. I'm going to bring a bunch of people with me that can help me to create it. You know what I'm saying? And beat me. We know you can't run. You're not going nowhere. There was a play where Matthew Stafford probably could have iced the game on a drive where we ended up scoring that next drive when we blocked the punt on a third down where he had, man, there was at least 15 yards available to him if he would have took off running. He ain't going nowhere. So it's going to be you going to beat me with your eyes and your manipulation on offense because I'm sending the house at you on defense. But no, what do? 2 yards off coverage. So when we talk about Ejiro Evero and no excuses, I think people are seeing it from that perspective. At least I am. What say you, Brad?
Well, I mean, I'll give the guy credit. He did. I've looked over that a couple of different times, and he did try to blitz Christian Roseboom once on that last drive. But your guys were on the field, your veterans who you love so much, and your guys let you down. I know there are a number of plays in a football game, but Nick Scott allowing the tight end, a slow, slew-footed tight end, run by him on 2nd and 15 and catch like a 40-yard pass or catch like a 30-yard pass, turn into like a 35, 40-yard gain. And then him getting the interception in the side of the end zone and holding it up and not securing it and allowing Puka Nacua to come punch it out. Mm-hmm. Those were 2 plays that could have cemented the game for us to win comfortably. He didn't make the plays. We lost the game. And that was one of his guys. So I feel like, we'll go back to what we were talking about earlier, that Dave having kind of an eye on it. Because, I mean, I don't know how many new situations that, we go into, but I've been into a number of situations where you do go in, you let the guy that's barking real loud continue to bark, and then you allow him to phase himself out. I mean, there's time that it takes for a person to firmly get entrenched into the people that he's overseeing. And so Canales is just like, let me see what's here. Let me see what's there. I've taken a couple years. I've been patient with EJ. He was the owner's pick to be the defensive coordinator. And I'm being patient. Mm-hmm. I mean, I literally thought before, we went to the playoffs and kind of strung together a good enough season to win the division that EJ was out and we'd be bringing in somebody like Robert Saleh. But mm-hmm. That's not what happened. And so I feel like EJ at times, he does that John Fox where let them make a mistake. We'll play perfect coverage, whatever. that stuff works until you have to play someone like a Matt Stafford.
Right.
You got to bring pressure. And so I hope he's got enough talent and he's got enough weatherall and he feels good enough about these players to actually, play a little more on the edge this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. So all that said, man, hey, man, we did it. Another great show on the books. Any last thoughts, man? Last words before we get out of here?
I want to give a shout out to my man G Reg. He won the award for Outstanding Personality Event Analyst over Tom Brady at Fox's at the Sports Emmy Awards on Tuesday night.
Mm-hmm.
G Reg, how we know him from the 7th Floor Crew, is a great announcer. He's kind of blown everybody's minds about how well he has adapted to this, how good he does, how he breaks down plays. I mean, and we've been since Pat Summerall and John Madden, we've kind of been hungry for a person to take over. And, Mike Tirico's good. Chris Collingworth is okay. I'm not a super fan of his. But G-Reg has came in. I mean, Greg Olson has kind of redefined how quick you can show the plays, show the replays, do the get the information across, talk about the players, talk about the stories that you want to hear. And he doesn't sound kind of full of himself so much as like a Tony Romo. I mean, we don't turn on the TV to watch the analysts just guess plays.
Mm-hmm.
Tony Romo's like, oh, this right here is look like a Z slot. Oh, this is going to be a slant. Watch him jump the route. I mean, and, that's what it is. But Greg Olson is just a great commentator. And Fox relegated him to being the number 2 guy just because Tom Brady retired, came on and was like, I'm going to, they put that money out, gave him all that money. And if we're being honest, he just wasn't as good at it as Greg Olson was.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I mean, I'm sure he can work harder. I mean, people get experience, but it's real awkward over at Fox right now because Greg Olson won at the annual Sports Emmy Awards and Tom Brady is their number 1 analyst. So, again, shout out to Greg Olson, one of my favorite Panthers of all time. Forever a fan. And that's all I got, Bubba.
Shout out to Third Leg, G-Reg. Pause. Man, I appreciate y'all joining me this afternoon for another episode of Mint Street Mondays. We are closing in on minicamp. It's coming up in a couple of weeks, and then we have that lull period where there's really literally nothing, and then preseason and regular season, man, it is almost here. I don't know about y'all, but I am extremely excited for this NBA Finals. Cannot wait to see the New York Knicks versus Wembanyama and the San Antonio Spurs, which I got to be honest with you, as a Laker fan, and I was talking about this the other day with my wife, like I'm not really in the NBA. I don't claim diehard allegiance to a specific team. Like I like the Lakers a lot, but I just like players, right? So I was rooting for Wembanyama and that team. Like I never thought I would root for a Spurs team ever, just because I just hated their brand of basketball. It's like NBA Duke to me. But this new version of the Spurs, man,
what?
Yeah, I hated the Spurs, bro. Hated them.
Man, NBA Duke is the Oklahoma City Thunder. I said that the other day when my boy Jason, me and him were talking, and then it was funny because Bo Money Jones did a whole segment of calling them the Oklahoma City Blue Devils. Man, that flopping and that fouling.
Right. Well, no,
they can't call everything. They can't call everything. I hate that brand of basketball. I call it redneck ball.
I don't like that ball, and I also don't like. I'm talking about the previous Spurs, the Spurs with the Duncan and Ginobili and Parker and all.
Man, they was just Chris, man.
Bruce Bowen. But they were a boring watch for me. You know what I'm saying? So,
right.
It's just a boring watch, but yes, great basketball nonetheless. 5 titles, and honestly, the most quiet 5 titles you will ever hear in your life. Because
forever, right?
if anybody else won 5 titles, if any other franchise, man, you'd hear about it all the time. You never hear about the Spurs 5 titles. But I guarantee you, if they do that with this guy, you're going to hear about it for eternity. Because I'm going to tell you, I saw a tweet, and I thought this was the funniest tweet that I've ever seen. And we have been having these debates over the last 20 plus years, right? About who's the greatest. And somebody tweeted, and it got a ton of reaction, and just really was just funny more than anything. And it was like after game 1 of Wemby against the Spurs, they were like, Jordan and LeBron better get their affairs in order. And I'm going to be honest with you, dog. I ain't trying to be prisoner of the moment, but if this boy pull off this and win, I think they can sweep New York. That's just my belief. I think New York's a good team, but I just don't think they're going to have an answer for him at all. They don't have, it's certainly not Karl Anthony Towns. It's certainly not.
I mean, not Cat.
No, and I like Cat. I mess with Cat, but it ain't Cat. It ain't, Jalen Brunson's really good. They got a team of shooters. So this, to me, if they gonna beat them, you're gonna have to beat them doing what you do best, and that's just flooding the market with 3-pointers. But I mean, OKC, they didn't shoot terribly from 3 themselves, and they can't do nothing with him. Man, if he win a title at 22, Brad, and you got to think, offensively, this kid don't really have a bag yet. But some of the things that I saw him do, because what he can develop into with strength is going to be fascinating to watch. But, man, I saw him do like the James Harden step back at 7'5" and splash in Chet Holmgren's face. And I was like, dog, come on, man. And then, like, him off the pick and roll and the dunks and all that kind of stuff. It's like Jay Will said this morning, he is Wilt Chamberlain's software upgrade. You're just seeing what Wilt was in that time, you're seeing in real time here now, because we've never seen this before. A guy that ambidextrous at 7'5". Never. That fluid. Never. And I'm like, it is honestly a joy to watch. It's a lot of fun to watch. So I'm excited about this finals, man. So I'm gonna be locked in. But
I mean, I think we are being prisoners of the moment because like we've kind of never seen anything like this. But I guarantee you, Wilt Chamberlain wasn't doing spin moves and falling directly from 7'5" to his chin on the floor, knocking himself out cold. This kid still needs a lot of work, but I'm not saying that to be, derogatory. I like what the big alien does. I like how he plays inside, but he shoots them out of a lot of games, man, shooting those threes. But they definitely need to take it at the Knicks, man. Karl Anthony Towns, he is I wouldn't say weakest, but he's the softest 7-foot guy I think I've ever seen. It's like he hates being on the block. He hates doing work inside. And their center has a broke pinky. So
that's what I'm saying. Like this, they
played
really
out
could
for the Spurs to do it.
And like, look, the same thing you say about Wemby, I feel that way about Castle. Like Castle is, man, he is an athletic freak, but he gets in his own head. Like Caruso just kind of had him in shambles, in his head the whole series. And then 2, he turns the ball over a lot. Like but that's the nature of an aggressive player.
Well, I mean, and the kid's 20 years old.
Yeah, and Wemby's 22. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So for them to be doing this at this age, that's what I'm saying. If they close the deal, bro, like they're not gonna do anything but get better. They ain't gonna do nothing but keep putting pieces around them and keep building the roster around them and stuff like that. You'll have every now and again shooters that'll want to go down there, but he has restored what many people felt like was missing during and I'm one of those people, like being a guy that I like LeBron, right? A lot, right? But I will say, because I kind of halfway expect LeBron to end up, in light of what we're seeing right now, I feel like the only thing that's going to stop them next year is potentially, and I still think that LeBron might be a little bit too old for this, is seeing Bron find his way to Golden State. You know what I'm saying? And they just, one last hurrah. They try to get it done with Bron, and I think there's a possibility they could. That said, though, man, it's just I love this. He don't really care to be friends type of energy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I love that.
We've been missing that, man. Jersey swaps and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everybody plays AAU together, so they
Yeah.
all come up through the ranks. Him and I know you had alluded to that earlier. Him and Chet Holmgren do not like each other, and like their kind of energy and the way he kind of shut down Chet and was just kind of like, "You're gonna." I mean, SGA may hurt us. You know what I'm saying? Like some of that 3-point shooting, Caruso.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not going to do anything.
Period.
You're not going to get off at all.
Bro, do you understand how I hate to I don't want to say embarrassing, but I guess that would be a word that fits. Man, Chet Holmgren, man, 1 for 2 in that last game. I mean, that's career altering, Brad. You literally were just on top of the world last year winning a title. And look, against the field can't do nothing with Chet. You know what I'm saying? Like, so this is literally a Wemby thing. This ain't got nothing to do with the field. So that's his saving grace, is that if this was anybody else, if this was any other team, you saw what they did in the playoffs up until that point. They were sweeping through everybody, right?
Yeah.
So this is very, very much a Wemby and company situation. That said, though, man, he not going nowhere. So he gonna be around. You gonna have to face him a few more times. It's like, this is where you start wondering, like, man, if they make a call to Giannis, if they, you know what I'm saying? Like, we got
I was about to say that.
You know, like, because Big Dog ain't going nowhere. So
if they win, if the Spurs win it this year, you may see one of those monumental in NBA, like kind of like the Chris Paul to the Lakers trade. Like they've got to step in and be like, no.
Yeah.
Because they've got all the assets, man. They've got first rounders. They've got second rounders. They've got money.
You're talking about OKC. Yeah.
They got players. Yes.
They sure do.
And they can call Milwaukee and be like, how about 3 of these first rounders, a couple of these players, and you send us Brother Antetokounmpo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 Ben flipping facts.
He ready. He ready to go.
He said they're going to have to body him to beat him. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, and good luck with that. That's what I'm saying. Like, man, when you just look down that roster and you see that defense, I mean, don't get me wrong. The Knicks played well in the East, and I'm not trying to crap on the East. They had trouble with Atlanta. What are they going to do against this defensive team? Like, Stephon Castle had, at times, the MVP in jail, bro. Had him in jail. I think, this is my honest opinion, the New York Knicks being in the finals is going to be a big deal. That place is going to be electric. So your saving grace is that you get your first 2 games at home. That's number 1. Number 2, another saving grace for you is going to be, or for the Knicks, possibly, were they a little bit too over-emotional about the win against OKC? And then they kind of think that they can come in here and just kind of skate by. I say no to that because they got Pop. Hey, look, Pop's imprint is still all over that team, without a doubt, right? When they lost, Game 3, they said Pop was waiting for him in the locker room. I was like, oh, boy. You know what I'm saying? Like, Pop might be on that cane, but he's still Pop. Man, dog. Outside of that, if you want to know my honest opinion, Brad, what I think they're going to sweep them. I don't think they have a shot. I don't think the Knicks have a shot. I think the Knicks got to the finals, and that was good enough for them. I don't think they have a shot against San Antonio. I think they're going to absolutely sweep them.
Well, with all the stuff that Jalen does in the lane and his step backs and all that, intermediate old school post up on the block game, I just don't see how you can operate in there and do those kind of fadeaways and kind of bully those small guards. One, because Stephen Castle's like 6'5" and he's their point guard.
Yeah.
2, because, man, Wemby's just going to be roaming. Yeah. I mean, you really, like, they're not going to have him follow Cat out to the 3-point line, and then your center's got a broke pinky. I mean, he may be able to play through it, but he's not going to be anywhere near as effective. And, Mitchell Robinson is just not one of those guys, man, that's going to pose any kind of real threat to Wembanyama. So, yeah, I'm with you on that. And then Mikal Bridges, he's the up and down, guy that you can't really count on game after game. So I hope the Knicks fans really appreciated making it this far, because this is kind of where the fairy tale ends.
Yes. One thing I saw, and we're going to go right after this. I love this being on NBC, which, by the way, NBC has brought back the feeling of the NBA. Man,
they trying, man, but I don't like that.
I love it all. Every
does it not feel a little empty, though?
No. Every bit of it. And part of it is because, and the main reason is because of this Wemby stuff, man. Because you can hear, like you said, you and I talked about enjoying seeing, like, I hate this. I don't like to say hate, because it's not hate, but just seeing like super competitive basketball come back, if that makes sense, right? So seeing Reggie Miller, you could hear him just like gushing, man, like talking about Wemby. Like last night the night before that when they won, how the players were embracing them, hugging them, how excited they were. But then also you could see him like, talking about Wemby and having that dog. And I was like, man, boy, what I love. I'm going to tell you what would be the icing on the cake for an homage to Reggie is if Wemby go in the Garden and get to, I'm talking threes, dunks, all that kind of stuff, and look over at Spike and tell him, shut your ass up, like Pippen did. Man, that would be, oh my gosh. You talk about the feeling, bro. Because that right there, man, the old guys already starting to love this guy because of that mentality that he has. If he start doing stuff like that, boy, all that lowest ratings in the world and all that kind of stuff, you can hang that up, because he's gonna become a villain to most people. He's beloved by just about everybody except for people that are diehard for other teams. You know what I'm saying? So that's only gonna get worse. I mean, OKC gonna be so motivated when they come back next year, man. They ended that game. It was a 6-point lead, dog. And when they got that steal, they ended that game with a dunk. That's disrespect. So, anyway, we out of here, man. Appreciate y'all joining us for another episode of Mint Street Monday and our little basketball talk at the end. But we appreciate y'all, man. Until we see y'all again next time, man, y'all know what to do. Make sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification so you don't miss a video. Until then, keep pounding.